Yesterday we had the awards in the NHL. Well, we revealed the final award winners. And Cale Makar wins Rookie of the Year. And there were some Canuck fans who felt that Quinn Hughes got robbed. I didn't. Now, did I think Quinn Hughes was going to win it? I thought he had a really good chance. Quinn Hughes had a really, really strong finish to the season. And he looked fantastic most of the year. But against Cale Makar, I think people are forgetting just how good Cale Makar really is. That this is not just a run-of-the-mill defenseman coming into the league. Cale Makar, born October 30th, 1988. Almost a full year older than Quinn Hughes, born October 14th, 1999. Cale Makar, number 4 pick in 2017. Quinn Hughes, a number 7 pick in 2018. Thanks, Detroit. So, this is one of those basically very comparable type situations. You can argue that Hughes, being almost a full year younger, has that much more development to get into his game and could very well have a higher ceiling. But I still said, when people ask me who's better between Makar and Hughes, I said it doesn't matter. The fans are going to be happy in Colorado and Vancouver for a very long time. So the regular season numbers: Cale Makar, 57 games played, 12 goals, 38 assists, 50 points. Quinn Hughes, 68 games, 8 goals, 45 assists, 53 points. Points per game: Cale Makar, .88, Hughes, .78. Now, Makar had an amazing start to the season going. Gets hurt. When he came back from injury, he didn't quite look the same in the beginning, whereas Quinn Hughes got better and better as the season went along. And this was why I thought, Hughes has a real chance to win this. And I was kind of expecting Hughes to end up winning the award. And there were a lot of votes for Hughes, but there were more votes in favor of Makar. So, when we look at their playoff numbers, this reveals that Makar is further ahead in development than Hughes. So there is a little bit of an apples to oranges going on here. Last year's playoffs, Cale Makar comes in, plays 10 games for the Avalanche, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points, and right out of the gate shows he is ready to be a top 2 defenseman in the NHL. That definitely gives him a leg up on Hughes, although Hughes had 5 games in the regular season with the Canucks and put up a few assists in those 5 games. It's not the same as playoff intensity. So for Makar, I thought he had an advantage coming into this season anyways. And you could make the argument he plays on a better team. Now, in the playoffs overall, 25 games, 5 goals, 16 assists, 21 points for Makar. For Hughes, 17 games this year, 2 goals, 14 assists, 16 points. In the playoffs this season, Makar, 15 games, 4 goals, 11 assists, 15 points. So, points per game, edge to Makar. Goals, edge to Makar. Assists, edge to Quinn Hughes. And again, the fans win. So, when we look at their overall numbers, it's interesting too to note that 4 power play goals for Makar, 3 for Quinn Hughes, 4 game-winning goals for Makar, 2 for Quinn Hughes. Very similar there. And then you get into the stats that I don't know how much of a difference this makes. A plus 12 for Cale Makar on one of the better teams in the league. A minus 10 for Quinn Hughes on a team that, Vancouver had their defensive problems. But on the defensive side of the puck, I don't know that it can be argued that Quinn Hughes is in the same league right now as Cale Makar. 21 minutes and 1 second of ice time for Cale Makar to go with 12 penalty minutes. 22 penalty minutes for Quinn Hughes, who played 21 minutes and 53 seconds per game of ice time. So almost an extra minute of ice time for Hughes. I would argue that the defense corps is deeper in Colorado. And you can get into the weeds on this a little bit too. The argument of, well, maybe he puts up more points. He doesn't play as much time as Hughes. But again, that's really getting into the weeds, and whether they're deploying him differently than Hughes is being deployed in Vancouver, and maybe that's why the defensive numbers are better. Hits are not a big difference maker, but if you're a voter and you're going, okay, who am I going to go with? Cale Makar, 45 hits this year, 7 for Quinn Hughes. It's not Hughes' game. Hughes is a very smooth skating, fast, smart, great puck handler. On the defensive side, hitting's not his game. 47 block shots from Makar to 46 for Hughes. Keep in mind, Makar played 9 less games. The overall defensive side of the game, I give the edge to Makar. The physical side, I give to Makar. that's where you're going to have that differential, and that very likely is what caused the votes to sway in favor of Makar. Giveaways, 39 giveaways for Makar, 38 takeaways, 60 giveaways for Hughes to 35 takeaways. So again, that leads you to look at these two and say, okay, defensively, Makar's probably better. And then if you're just looking at pure numbers, and often I've postulated that a lot of these voters, they're not seeing every single game. They're not watching as religiously as some. And it's time management, right? They just don't have the time. If you get down to just pure numbers, that's where you can see that Makar, in almost every category, kind of comes out ahead of Quinn Hughes. Now, again, 19 points in his last 18 games in the regular season for Quinn Hughes. I thought the last 2 months of the regular season before the pause, Hughes was fantastic, and that's why I had him with an edge over Makar at that stage. And I maintained that. Now, if we'd had a full 82-game season, who knows? Maybe if Hughes had posted in those last 14 games, say, 20 points, 73 points, you might have 65 over here. Maybe that turns opinions in the favor of Hughes, but that's where you're into the ifs. And for voters, they're not going to look at it that way. So 163 or 116 out of 160 gave first place votes to Cale Makar. Hughes gets 53 first place votes, 111 second place votes. So there's very few that had Hughes outside of the top two, and most had Makar as the number one. And again, I don't take this as an indictment of Quinn Hughes, and I don't want Canuck fans to watch this and say, oh, he's saying Quinn Hughes isn't good defensively. I'm not saying that. I am complimenting Cale Makar on being what we look at, and we're in a league, and I did a video on this not long ago where, hey, these could be your potential future Norris winners, and every fan base in the league believes that there's a future Norris winner on their roster. The reality is, Norris winners are your elite level, top, absolute cream of the crop defenseman, and I do see Makar ending up being that guy. I look at Victor Hedman as still being the best defenseman in the league. No offense to Roman Josi, I still think Hedman's the best defenseman in the league. But Cale Makar now is in that conversation with the year he had this year. Quinn Hughes is an excellent offensive defenseman. The rest of the game, that whether it's hitting, whether it's getting his takeaways and giveaways more even, that could come later as he matures physically, as he gets better and better year in and year out. Hughes may find himself I'll go as far as say he may end up being the better point producer than Makar overall. Although I still think Makar is going to end up being the better goal scorer, and I think Makar is going to be the better defensive defenseman. And he'll score more points than Josi. He will. So again, I'm not trying to nitpick at Quinn Hughes. I could just totally understand why Makar ends up winning the vote on this. And I don't see Hughes having been, they screwed Hughes over, And if it was an anti-Canuck thing, Pettersson, I don't see an anti-Canuck thing. And it's funny because that comes up, and then it reminded me of way back. The year that Pavel Bure won the Rookie of the Year, I didn't think he was going to win it that year, so I didn't think he'd played enough games, and I thought that the other guys that had played the full season might end up getting more votes than what they ended up getting. So, and much like then, I think they got it right this time too. So I agreed with Bure winning it when he got it. I was just surprised. In this case, it's the right player. I still think over their careers, Cale Makar is going to be the better player overall. Because he's absolutely fantastic. He's one of the reasons I'm still very, very bullish on the Colorado Avalanche. Because I think he's that good. Again, not to besmirch Quinn Hughes. Not to say that Quinn Hughes isn't going to be an excellent defenseman himself. I think he's the best defenseman the Canucks have ever had. But it is a totally different game between these two. When you factor in that offensively, the numbers are stronger for Makar. Physically, the numbers are stronger for Makar. Any stat you want to use, and I know, I always throw plus minus in because while there are some who don't like that stat, there are others that do. And I know that there are voters that would be looking at that and say, well, I think Makar had the better season defensively. So I think he had the better overall rookie season. But hey, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, it is going to be fun to watch these guys over the next 10, 15 years. Hopefully they both remain in one location, and the Avs and the Canucks and their fandoms get to enjoy the entirety of their careers, because I think they're both pretty special defensemen. But let me know your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.